virtual conference series. This is season 1, episode 2. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Rohan. I am the head of customer success EMEA at Blueshift. I'm going to introduce our panelists in just a moment, but want to walk through some housekeeping items. So we're going to be having some Q&A and saving those till the end. So please start submitting your questions throughout the session, and we'll take those questions in the last 5 minutes. We're also giving away an Uber Eats gift card to a lucky winner at the end of the session. So make sure you stick around all the way till the end. And we also ran a fun poll question while folks were joining. So why don't we get the poll up? So the question was, what's been your favorite shelter-in-place pastime? And it looks like the big winner is enjoying time with the family. That's great to hear and great to see. It looks like folks are also spending time outdoors. I have a park not too far away, so that's where I've been spending my time. Folks are also catching up on Netflix, enjoying curling up with a great book, and learning something new, which is also great. Wonderful. So with that, I'd love to get started. So the title of our session today is Winning Strategies for Multi-Channel Campaigns. With that, I'd love to introduce our esteemed panelists. So we'll start off with Kate. Kate Turney is the global head of CRM at Clearscore. Clearscore is the UK's #1 credit checking service and leading consumer finance brand. We also have Mark Neary. Mark is the ECRM manager of Groupon here in the UK, where he also manages one of their subsidiaries, Voucher Cloud. And we have Tyler Norris. Tyler is the email and loyalty manager at Tuft & Needle, which we know as a leading direct-to-consumer mattress and bedding brand based in the United States. So before we get started, I'd love to hand it off. Kate, would you please give us a bit more information about your role in Clearscore, and then we'll hand it off to Mark and Tyler, and then we can dive into the session.
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. So I have been at Clearscore only for about 5 months, actually, and it's been a bit of a whirlwind. So my role is to look after all of the CRM globally across all of our markets, and I think we're just on a really exciting journey. So as kind of a startup 4 years in, we've kind of grown with Blueshift, really, and we just continue to develop our CRM program to be better, smarter, more intelligent, and help our users more, really. So we're excited to be on the journey together.
Great. Mark?
Hi, yeah, thanks for having me. So I'm the ECRM manager at Voucher Cloud and for Groupon also. So Voucher Cloud is a platform that allows users to save money with coupons and discount codes. And my role is really to check the communications we're sending and get the best from those communications, and to send the right message to the right users at the right time, ultimately. We've been using Blueshift for about 3 years now, and it helps us to deliver those messages.
Great. Tyler, over to you.
Hey guys, I'm Tyler Norris. Happy to be here. So I work at Tuft & Needle. We are a direct-to-consumer mattress brand, which I'm sure you've experienced one of those, if not hundreds of those. There's about 200 of them that exist now. Before I came to Tuft & Needle, we actually didn't email customers a ton, didn't have automation workflows. So when I came on board, it was really an opportunity for me to think through what that kind of email journey looks like in an unobtrusive way. We're in a space of rest. People sleep on this product. So thinking about how email and any other channel that can be incorporated into this kind of world and how that can further an experience rather than just be a constant annoyance. Since I didn't have anything that I had to work with, it really gave me a good opportunity to think through how to deliver the best messaging to people, on top of just thinking through really innovative strategies that we just didn't have anyone to really think through before. So, yeah.
Great. So that's great context. I'd love to start with, so we know the theme of the talk is winning strategies for multi-channel engagement. Given the world has fundamentally changed over the past couple of months, so too has consumer behaviors and preferences. So I'd love to start there because you all have had to adapt your businesses and communication strategies accordingly. So let's start there, and then we can zoom out to hear more broadly about how you think about CRM, customer retention, engagement, value, and delivering a relevant and personalized consumer experience. So to kick us off, how are you starting to think about the customer engagement and your overall marketing mix, and how has that evolved from, say, promotional and commercial in the past to now might be more educational or entertaining over the past couple of months? Kate, I'd love if you could kick us off. Since Clearscore's goal is to help people achieve greater financial well-being during times of financial uncertainty, would love to hear how your marketing mix has shifted.
Yeah, it's definitely changed quite a lot actually, and continues to evolve over the last few months. So I'd say normally our mix is probably 2/3 commercial type sends, whether that's kind of triggered, bottom of funnel, automated comms, or kind of one-off marketing sends. And then probably 1/3 which are more educational. So, how do we help people understand the credit score, build their credit score, and use the tools we have available? As I'm sure you can understand, from a financial point of view, people have been massively impacted. We know our users have been impacted at large scale by COVID-19, whether they're furloughed, their jobs are at risk, they're having to work at home because of childcare. So I guess as soon as this started happening, we kind of stepped back and said, how do we make sure that we help these users? We don't bombard them, we don't scare them, and we stay true to our roots of making finance clear and simple. So our immediate reaction was to pull back a bit on our commercial comms, and make sure where we did send those out that the tone of voice and the content was right, but we definitely pulled back on those, and we introduced a lot more kind of helpful comms. So things like a weekly news roundup, just to talk about this is what's happened, this is what the government's announced this week, this is where you can find financial help, whether it's with us and the content we were building on our site in the COVID-19 hub, or externally, whether it was the government or elsewhere. And we saw really, really great engagement with that kind of content, so we kind of did more. So we did some tailored comms that were more specific to what we knew about our users. So whether it's you've been furloughed or you're self-employed, here's some help. And I guess then we were just guided by user engagement and research. So the great thing about CRM and kind of be able to use all the reporting and data we have available was that we could understand and react to user engagement. So we saw really high open rates of kind of 40, 45, 48% from those kind of comms. So we kept doing them. We realised that if we put COVID-19 in the subject line, like the open rates would almost double. So we continued to do that. What we also noticed was that our commercial comms were still performing well, because clearly there's quite big demand for credit products in the market right now. So we then upped the volume of those a little bit again. But we're just really mindful that we sent the right content out. The language was really helpful. Everything linked back through to the COVID hub we created. And that went really well. We also did some user engagement research through email, and we got loads of great feedback from both there and from social media to say, thank you, this is really helping us, more of the same, please. We then kind of started to evolve that a little bit. So based on what people were doing within our hub, we could target even more with this stuff is what you've been looking at, here's some useful content. And that went down really well too. But then what we've started to see is actually that news related content, the COVID-19 stuff, is now dropping back off in engagement again, because I think it's become the new norm. There's actually less news. People are getting a little bit more understanding of what their situation will be. So now we're starting to go back to normal. So we've reduced that kind of news roundup COVID-19 content, and we've stepped our commercial comms back up again, because that's what users are starting to engage with. So yeah, I think my view is the great thing about CRM is you just look at what users want and what they're engaging with, and if it's changing, then let's evolve it and do something different.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think like COVID fatigue or just like hearing about it every day is a real thing. So it's interesting to see that evolution of providing that educational information that folks need around their financial well-being, but now they want to start thinking about their future and find the right financial products to help them achieve that. Mark, we'd love to turn it over to you. I know you face a lot of pressure from your sales team to run a lot of these promotions and a lot of these high volume sends that might need to go out. Keen to hear how that shifted based on folks needing to be home, maybe not able to go and eat at the restaurants or get their haircuts. How has the mix shifted for you at Groupon?
Yeah, it's in constant flux, really. And as we know from lockdown, people are either working from home or they're furloughed in their home, and that's 24/7. So I think it's making a lot of people take stock of their environments, and wanting to improve their home or even themselves. So the types of offer redemptions we've seen an increase in are DIY, gardening, home furnishing, fitness products, online courses, streaming services, and takeaway and delivery offers. So we have to be agile and listen to those trends, and listen to our users and present them with what they want to see. So the content of our comms has changed, and the types of offers we're promoting have changed. For example, there's no holiday merchants. We're not talking about going on holiday, as you mentioned, restaurant brands. There's none of that content in our communications currently. And also, I think it's important that we have to be careful with our tone of voice, and the selection of imagery we choose. So when we talk about summer, we're not going to be putting that beach with the coconut tree on, because people are stuck at home in the garden. But we're still busy, and recently the Office of National Statistics published that online sales as a proportion of all retailing reached a record high as 22.3% in March 2020. So we're busy, but it means the focus has shifted. And with Groupon, for example, they've scaled back on certain lines of business, so travel and goods, but that's opened up more opportunities for us as coupons. So we're getting more exposure.
Interesting. That's a great point. And Tyler, we've got a lot of e-commerce marketers joining us today and tuning in. So we'd love to hear from a disruptive direct-to-consumer brand like you at Tuft & Needle. I know you've done some great work for the New York hospitals. So we'd love if you can tell us a bit about that experience around the messaging that you've been communicating at this time.
Yeah, for sure. I think like a really valid point that Kate and Mark both bring up too is that I was reading a statistic somewhere, and it's like companies are experiencing a 40% increase in open rates. So it's like, whether you want it to or not, people are more hyper aware of what you're saying and what you're sending to them right now. And to Mark's point, yeah, you have to be very critical of what you're talking about, because people are going to be aware whether you want them to or not. And there's even an increase in awareness, whether you're driving that or it's just because people are at home. So yeah, I think for us, it's been great just because we've had a few opportunities to really make direct impacts in various parts of the country in the United States. For example, so we're owned by Serta Simmons Betting. That acquisition / merger occurred about 2 years ago. But last month, they actually outfitted New York City hospitals with about 10,000 beds, which to me is like a really encouraging thing to see, just as a person and like an employee of the company. But on top of that, it's like great information for our consumers to know as well. I think everyone's trying to figure out who's committed to like the well-being of people right now and who's not. And so being able to have opportunities like that to highlight in an email blast or whatever, yeah, it just makes me feel good. And I think it makes our customers feel a lot better about, buying from us and continuing to buy from us. On top of that, we're based out of Phoenix, Arizona. If you don't know where that is, it's just really hot and a desert. But the need for innovative equipment out here is like pretty dire. And so we actually had a doctor who works with, or whose wife works with us at Tuft & Needle. She made us aware of this project that he was working on. It's called an intubation box. If you guys want to Google it, you can. One of our product team members was actually able to help fashion a lot of the materials for these boxes so that they could start mass producing them and start getting them to other hospitals. Another thing I'm able to talk about with our customers. I think too, one of the things I'm trying to do a lot is thinking through what does relief look like for people, not just from a content perspective, but like literal relief. Like how can we as a company provide relief in certain aspects of someone's life? And it's like Kate and Mark are both trying to figure that out as well. Whether that's like a content play or whatever, but I do think it's a good time to really think about like what ideas are being thrown out there? What action items are your company or companies taking to kind of like the finish line and trying to help people? And how can you kind of aid that, way of thinking? I think a random altruistic idea, if that hits you over the weekend, like, I don't think there's any problem with you bringing that to leadership teams or colleagues and getting kind of like a gauge on what people think about that, because this really is a time for moonshot ideas. And I don't think it should, the dire situation that we're in, or like how difficult things have become for some people, I don't think that should keep us from thinking about ways to really help impact individuals' lives in a really impactful way.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think right now it's table stakes to have the right tone of voice, but you're also right where people are going to remember how you treated them and how the experience that you shared and what you did right during this time. So, just good to be a good business, and it's good business to be a good human. So it sounds like Tough to Needle is definitely taking that to heart. So that's just great to hear. But you also mentioned something that, we're seeing unprecedented engagement. We're seeing that across our customer base, across CRM. So I think I was reading some stat. Some of our customers are using SMS, and they're seeing, 80 plus open rates and 30% plus offer engagement rates within the first 15 to 20 minutes. Everyone's at home. People are on their devices, spending more time. But I think the content needs to be appropriate to the channel as well. So thinking a bit about, how you're adjusting communications based on changing product inventory. I know each of you are facing this challenge right now. A lot of businesses are, whether it's the ever-changing availability of products for you, Kate. I know a lot of your merchant partners are pulling back some of their lending products because folks' financial stability is slightly in flux these days. To Mark, I know your offering is changing away from retail to kind of like the home health side of things. And then of course, Tyler, managing a direct-to-consumer brand, I can imagine you're facing some supply chain constraints as well. So I'd love to start off with you, Mark. I think you've got some really creative stories around how you're changing some of these offers based on the fact that everyone's sheltering in place, working from home. So I would love if you could speak a bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So I guess a good example is in about mid-April, we noticed a trend in gardening-related redemptions. So we put together a gardening-themed email, basically with offers from merchants which were really relevant and were trending. We sent that on a Saturday afternoon at kind of prime time when you're probably going to be thinking about being in the garden. And that email drove the highest sessions of any marketing email we've sent this year. So we're continuing with those trending themed emails, as they're proven a great addition to our marketing mix. And they're also helping to fill the gap left by some of those missing merchants. Also, I was mentioning earlier that we've got to listen to our users and follow those trends. So, another example is at the beginning of the lockdown, takeaway offers were not that popular. I think it's because people were enjoying cooking and, finding their newfound skill of baking from home. And probably as people weren't so educated with, how it was being transmitted, etc., there was probably some fears of contamination. But after a couple of weeks, into lockdown, I think everyone decided that they deserved a takeaway. And so we started to, see that increase in offer redemptions in merchants like Just Eat. So we started to surface that content more. We were putting it in the newsletter. We were also sending, more communications based on that. We also sent, like I was mentioning earlier, the themed email based on takeaways and alcohol as well, because alcohol sales have improved. So spotting those trends and changing the comms we've sent has helped us. And also it's changed for certain channels as well. So desktop pushes, for example, we'd normally send 3 a week. We're sending 1 every day because people are at home, they're on their laptop, that kind of work home is getting blended in, so that they're more receptive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really interesting that you're starting to think about that optimal message frequency and you're adjusting it by channel. That's insightful. Tyler, I know, tough to needle there. You're a mature direct-to-consumer brand, obviously owned by Serta. So you might not be feeling the pain of supply chain as much as some of the smaller direct-to-consumer brands, but I know it's probably something that you and your team are managing. Would be keen to hear what that experience has been like and what that communication has been like internally to make sure that you're setting expectations correctly with your customers.
Yeah, totally. It's unfortunate. We have had one product that we are unable to fulfill now because our distribution hub for it was shut down. And I think that's potentially going to happen more often than not in the coming months for a lot of people. I think in Arizona, we're reopening a lot of things right now. Restaurants are coming out and opening on Monday. So it seems like feel good, like great, we're returning to normal, but it's really hard to tell. But I do think that overall our company tries to strive for just setting expectations and being like uber transparent as much as we possibly can. We've really taken it upon ourselves to identify potential issues that we'll run into, even if they're not an existing issue yet. So we have drafted a lot of shipping delay emails. We tried to think about like, how do you inform a user about this new process of buying things online? Before this whole thing occurred, the majority of people that would buy a mattress, they bought it in person. They didn't buy it online. So we have a really unique opportunity to poach, right? And like win a lot of people over. It's not necessarily how we want to approach it though. We want to think about it in terms of how do we educate people on how this process works? What does contact-free delivery look like? How is this thing going to get to my door in a sanitary way? People are asking these questions, whether they are asking them to us directly or not. I think it's in the back of their head. So, I've even considered thinking about my entire series of automation workflows and, the type of communications that we have in there, especially for new customers or even within like the welcome series itself. And thinking about like, the contact-free delivery aspect of it for sure, but also like shipping delays that may occur, setting the expectation that product availability may or may not be a thing that we can fulfill on. So even if there's a product that they can see online and they make a purchase, like we may have to cancel that order or make adjustments to it so that it gets to them in a safe manner. But yeah, I think overall it's like, you just have to give your customers like thought process an inside look, and really pinpoint concerns or questions or issues that might arise for them in this time, and how you as, the marketer that's in charge of communication channels, how can you kind of disperse or dispel like stress or concerns with what's going to happen when they make that purchase and they finally get it to their door.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I know, Kate, you're working with your lending partners and things are changing day to day, as you tell me, where, some like loan products might be available one day, but they're not available the other. So keen to hear about that, but also how you think about communication, across channels. You're doing a great job of reaching users, not just on email, but also push notifications. Keen to hear how you think about the messaging and what's relevant for email versus, say, push.
Yeah, completely. Like you say, obviously, as a marketplace and a financial marketplace right now, I guess we're, trying to balance that kind of supply and demand is tricky because there's really high demand. And like you said, the supply is fluctuating quite a lot because our partners are trying to work out what they can lend safely, who they should lend to. And clearly they have a really big job to do. Our panel is changing quite a lot day to day. I think actually what Tyler said around just being really transparent and setting expectations for users is really key in that. So like I said, we are sending quite a lot of commercial emails out still because we're seeing really high engagement and we know that our users are looking for credit. and that financial help we can give them. So I think the first thing is that setting expectations, so making sure we're messaging clearly to people. Things are changing, not in a scaremongering hurry up way, but things are changing. If you see something, actually you probably should take it, but just keep coming back and checking, because this is changing all the time, and I think that's really important to be transparent about that. I think the other thing that has been helpful to us is that, because genuinely our business is all around personalized recommendations as products anyway, a lot of the automated comms we have set up within Blueshift, whether they're push notifications or emails, are already based on pulling through personalized products and products from our panels, so we didn't have to go in and change all of our automated comms, which is great. And then I think the approach we've taken for our kind of one-off comms is just to be really agile, to work really, really closely with our kind of commercial team, and just rapidly respond and change, and look at what are the best products we have on the panel today for these users, and take a segmented approach to try and send the most relevant products we have available. And that, in all honesty, is quite a manual process, but it's working quite well. The other thing then, it's probably slightly more science-based, is looking at, how can we use automation, what can we do using our data scientists and kind of the Blueshift tools to help users if they haven't been seeing things. So for example, our data scientists have built a model where we can predict how many kind of scored offers a user will see if they visit the panel, and then we can compare that to what they saw last week. And so we're setting up triggers just to drop. Push is working really well for this, because it's quite instant to say, we think you're going to see more offers, you might want to come back and check right now. And I think trying to do those really tailored, specific messages to users, they've been looking and didn't see much, let's tell them now they will, and then they'll come back. And we've seen really positive engagement with those. And then I think the other thing is just trying to think a bit creatively, and it does go back to, as a business, and our CEO is generally, he wants to help people. So it's like, what's the best way we can help you? So things like, if we know users are searching for quite small value loans, and there aren't many of those available right now, actually maybe a credit card, certain credit cards for certain users actually can be, in fact, a better solution. So we're doing quite a bit of retargeting and kind of really running some of those figures to understand what is the best product we can give a user. And if we can't, let's not send them anything. Let's send them something educational about how to build their credit score, where else they could go for help, what else they could consider. So I think it's that real balance of, trying to match supply and demand, and where you really can't help people, don't give them the wrong thing. Tell them we can't help you right now, but here's something that might help you instead.
Yeah, that's interesting. We've got customers that are also just starting to test more. There's certain channels that they were a bit hesitant to get started with. So SMS is one. The common complaint is one, it is more expensive than push and email, and also they feel they'd be annoying their customers by sending an SMS. But we've asked them to prove their hypothesis right or wrong, right, and just test it. And so what we've seen is, it's important to also be smart about it, right? So the message needs to be relevant to the channel. So what we've seen work well is, at the end of the day, it's about treating your customers well and just showing them that you're looking out for them. So when we think about e-commerce, having something like a back in stock text message, like, hey, we know you looked at this product, we know you added it to your, you looked at it, you wanted to add it to your cart, it's now back. So we wanted you to be the first to know. That's been working really well. Same with price drops or low in stock. It's really, we're looking out for you. Here's a quick way. We want you to be the first to know, and you can take action. We're seeing that that's working. We're seeing higher engagement. We're seeing higher conversion. And that's changed their mind about, all right, well, if it's driving, incremental material amount of revenue for the business, and we see the consumers are more engaged and happy, maybe they are getting value from this new channel. So we're seeing a lot of testing at this time, because consumer behavior has changed. Past campaigns might not be working as well. So it's really can be an opportunity for testing a lot of new ideas.
Yeah, I'd agree with that actually. In terms of a channel, we're using quite a lot more push at the moment for those kind of, back in stock kind of messaging. And also things like time of day, we're seeing actually that has shifted quite a lot as well as people are at home.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny how the weekdays and weekends are blurring into each other. Work days and evenings are blurring into each other as well. So it's interesting to see how engagement is changing and morphing, but also how we still have tools like engage time optimization that allows you to to send a notification to users when they're most likely not just to engage, but to convert as well. So, we're talking a lot about cross-channel experiences, but it's also important to understand that when we think about building these experiences, it also means working cross-functionally, internally, right? So I know oftentimes when our marketing teams, our customers think about rolling out mobile, for example, they work pretty closely with the product team because product owns the in-app experience. But even within marketing itself, CRM, brand, acquisition, those are all functionally different teams and different people. So I'm keen to hear from each of you how you work together, how you might align KPIs to deliver that cohesive customer experience. Kate, would love to start with you. I know you do a great job thinking about this methodology that you've built out. So I'd love if you could speak to that.
Yeah, so I think, all the jobs I've had, clearly, working across the business and all achieving your own goals is always a tricky thing because everybody has their own things they're trying to achieve. And actually, coming from before Clearscore, I worked for Tesco, which is the biggest grocery retailer in the UK, which is a huge company and was so siloed. There are so many projects that were not only possible to deliver because teams reporting to different directors who had a different objective that they were bonused against, and nothing happened. Actually, Clearscore, it's a smaller company, B, they're very aligned. So I think what works really well for us is we work in races and we have a very, very clear race plan, and each team shares that with all of the other teams, and we talk through where the crossovers, where the dependencies, are we going to be able to deliver these things or not, which is a fantastic starting point. But clearly, even within that there are still, things we have to get working. So probably, if I think about some specific examples, so our strategic CRM plan has got 4 key pillars, 3 of which we cannot deliver alone. We intrinsically need to work with the departments to deliver those, and probably different ways of working. So one of those is around really identifying and delivering against the optimum frequency and relevancy for CRM. So I guess one of those age-old questions and probably tensions that every single person here has if they work in CRM is that kind of healthy tension between commercial teams and marketing teams for CRM around how many emails or text messages or push notifications do we send to our users? Because generally the commercial guys want you just to send more. Just send it to everybody and somebody might respond. Whereas CRM teams usually would much rather be really targeted and work out what's the right content to send to the right person at the right time. So one of the things that I'm working really closely with our insight teams on and our commercial team is let's test it. So we've done some, some insight post-campaign analysis that looks like we've got a certain point when we start to see diminishing returns from sending high volumes of CRM. What we've agreed now is rather than just changing our plan based on that and potentially impacting our revenue, let's test it and test it properly. So for the whole of May, we've got a test cell where we are sending a lower frequency to than everybody else. And we've costed it. The commercial team, the UK GM, who are very reliant on our CRM for revenue, especially right now, have agreed and signed up to that. So I think, working with those guys, it's been very much a joint project to say, what is the risk? What is the potential gain? Let's do this safely and agree to it up front. And let's use the data and the numbers to inform our strategy going forwards. Mm-hmm. That's one. Another one, which is a slightly different bent, is segment-based contact strategy. So whilst we have lots of personalised comms that are kind of automated through Blueshift, we don't really have a segment strategy right now. So our insight team have developed a new segmentation model that we're going to use. But actually what's really important is that we have an owner for that. So marketing are the owner for the segmentation strategy, because I think that sits quite clearly in our world of what's the right thing to say to our different segments. What do we talk to them about? How do we talk to them? What are our objectives? So within marketing, we need to work together to make sure that, and again, Blueshift helps with this actually, that we are saying the same thing, whether it's in CRM or whether it's in social or in display. But we also need to work with teams outside of marketing, because it's no good, giving really specific messaging in all your CRM and all your digital comms if when you come into the app, the personalised messaging in the app doesn't match up with that. And so I think that's one where we've had really clear ownership of marketing, and then we'll work with other stakeholders to make sure that what's delivered is consistent. And then the third one is personalization at scale. So I guess taking segmentation to the next level on kind of a one-on-one. And this is really a massive company-wide, it's kind of the center of what we try and do, right? And, we all talk about the brain and kind of these decisioning factors. That's something that our business are really trying to build at the heart of what we do. So, that doesn't have one owner. That has owners in every department. So for that, it's such a big project. We have a proper, cross-business working team who come together, and we look at what our future aim and goal is and what we're all doing to contribute to that, so that we're really clear we're not double counting, we're working together, we're testing in the most efficient way. So, for me, that comes out into 4 key things, which is, aligned objectives and resource plan. If you don't have those objectives aligned and you haven't talked about what resource you need from other teams, you're probably not going to get anywhere, because you're all going to be butting against each other, and frankly nobody ever has enough resource, right? And secondly, is that really clear ownership. So who is owning it? Like, is it owned by one person or one team, or actually is it something that's really big and has joint ownership, and therefore how's that going to work? I think data-led decision making, the beauty of CRM is that it is data driven. We can test and understand everything, make sure you use that to make those decisions and to get buy-in from other departments that you need. And finally, just communication, like anything, right? Those open, honest conversations, that constantly telling each other and giving each other updates, understanding everybody else's kind of, what they're trying to achieve in their objectives. I'm pleased to say at Clearscore, genuinely, it's pretty amazing. They've got it right, and it works well because it is so incredibly aligned. And sometimes that's a difficult conversation. That means you don't do something you really want to do, but it's better not to start it than to get halfway through and just be banging your head against a brick wall.
Yeah, that's very well said. It sounds like your approach is very mature as well. So we have a lot of questions rolling in. So would like to round out this question with Tyler and Mark, and then we can start to get into the Q&A. So Tyler, when we chatted, you mentioned that this is sort of a work in progress for you and your teams, right? I think the example you gave was something which should be as simple as the add to cart or abandoned cart experience, slightly different creative treatments from email to the paid Facebook ad to other channels. So talk a bit about how you're thinking about unifying that experience, creative treatments, messaging, positioning across teams, across channels.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's tough for us. We're in a stage of transition, I think, where we're trying to move in that direction of making sure everything's unified, creative treatments are similar, messaging and tone is the same. What I'm trying to do personally is identifying different projects that we can bring that to right now, even if we can't incorporate a creative treatment alignment on every marketing campaign that we do. We can at least try and do some. So one of the examples that actually my Blueshift account manager, Sam Harold, he actually helped me a lot with this project. We have people who buy a mattress and then they have 100 nights to try it. And they can return it for any reason within that time. And if they don't like it, we'll take it, collect it, and then donate the mattress to a charity or a shelter. So within that time frame, it's really sensitive. And we had never traditionally emailed customers during that time about anything because we want them to experience the product. And there's a lot of fear, right? You start talking to someone during this process, you make them aware of pain points they have with the product. They remember that they can return it at any point, and we potentially increase returns and we start not making as much money as we used to. So there's a lot of sensitivity to even rolling a project out like this. So when we started, it was like, here's this idea I have, let's email during this time frame, what should we say? And then I was able to find out that our customer service team has been flagging customer communications during their sleep trial with specific reasons. So it'd be like, this person's writing in about a product defect. This person's writing in about what additional product offerings do you have? There'd be another person writing in saying just like, gratitude or thanks. We were able to take a model of that with our data science team. So for every piece of communication that a customer would write in about, we got to map it over that 100-night trial period. And then we were able to say, all right, we need to deliver this type of communication to customers on day 5 of their sleep trial because most people write in about that stuff on day 10. So let's get it ahead of when they would normally write in about it. And then on top of that, everything everything that we created creatively and like content wise, we made sure our customer experience team read that stuff over, because this time frame is when they communicate with customers most. And so we wanted to make sure that anything that we were saying during this time frame was reflective of how they would approach an individual and how they would talk to a real person, so that it doesn't come across as like, hey, generic customer that just bought a product, here's this thing that you're using and here's how we think we can enhance your experience with it. Within that whole time frame too, upselling is really crucial. And so we were able to utilize, with the help of Sam again, utilizing the recommendations engine and configuring it in a way that wasn't trying to like be too aggressive and trying to push that sale, but really trying to like say, these are things that you could also add if you want to. We're not trying to force you at all. Down the line, I think we're going to try and test a lot with that functionality. Like, do we want to offer discounts within that? Do we not? But I think overall, it wasn't, in my mind, it wasn't in the traditional sense of like, oh, like, well, this is multi-channel, but it was, because it's like, we went to the data science team, we got all this data mapped out. Customer service was like, we're a part of this process already, so let's tell you what we figured out on our part. So it wasn't necessarily going to like paid Facebook or like Google retargeting, that kind of stuff. But it was, you know, some lesser known departments that I traditionally would have tapped for something like that. So yeah, I mean, I think overall it was just great to kind of think about not just marketing for a second. It was like, how can we reduce the amount of returns that happen on our products? Yeah. How can we reduce the amount of people that write in to our customer service team so that they're not so bombarded with communications from people during this time? So it really was like a multi-channel KPI kind of approach, where everyone was thinking about what can we reduce, not just in terms of like, can we increase sales during this process, but how can we make everyone's life easier at the company, essentially? So
yeah, I love that. That's such a great idea. I mean, you think that's sort of like sales 101, which is objection handling. You address the objection before they bring it up, but you're taking it a step further, right? Mattresses are a very considered purchase. They're high order value. They're also very personal. People interact with them 8 hours every night. So I love that you have worked with your team to develop this journey where you're adding value like every day or whatever that frequency is to users. They've parted with their money. They've made that decision, and now you're just showing them new ways they can use the mattress, address any concerns they might have night 10, night 20, night 30, and just making them feel good about their purchase. And that's just such a great idea. So Mark, we just had a question come in I think you'd be great to speak to. And it's a great segue because it's asking specifically about, you know, how our panelists are using Blueshift itself and aiding their capabilities. Specifically, you know, how are you using the recommendation engine, the recommendation system to drive some of your cross-channel orchestration? So yeah, there's been really some questions around how are you using Blueshift and how has the recommendation system been helpful to you? So Mark, would love to hear a bit about how you've been using that for some of the offers that you're building at VoucherCloud and Groupon.
Yeah, sure. Recommendations are essential for us. I think probably the best thing we do with them is by using an algorithm which will reorder them based on a user's affinity. So obviously everyone has a subjective opinion of what if there were 10 offers given to you, you would say, oh, I'd put them in this order from 1 to 10. But obviously we're sending millions of emails, millions of users. We can't guess what everyone's favorite offer is, even just because I think it is. So I kind of took that guesswork out of that. And so where we lead with our 10 offers, we know that they're 10 strong offers, but we allow Blueshift to do the grunt work, the AI thinking to reorder them. So if someone has been browsing, toys recently, and we've got a toy offer in there, that's going to jump to the top. If someone's liked a brand and that brand is one of the top 10, it's going to go near the top. So if someone performs an action that shows they've got an affinity with one of those brands, it's going to reorder it objectively. And we find that's working really well for us.
Mm-hmm. Tyler, I know, with Tuft and Needle, the entry point is obviously the mattress, but there are other products that are relevant to the sleep experience. Keen to hear about how you're thinking about surfacing the right product at the right time, the right channel, based on someone's journey with Tuft and Needle.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty general right now. We haven't gotten super targeted with it yet. We are using the affinity recommendation engine for a new customer, so that if they have made a purchase, specifically a mattress, we are trying to utilize what they're looking at, how they're browsing the website to serve within the cross-sell email itself.
Mm-hmm.
But I think down the line, I mean, we really try to utilize, if we have like a new discount that gets rolled out on a new product, we're only sending that to people that are like actually interested in the product. So, an additional markdown occurs during this time, because I know a lot of people are probably experiencing that too. It's like, not only do you have a site-wide discount going on, but you potentially have supply chain asking you to discount additional items now. So we are trying to make sure that we reduce the amount of noise about that stuff, because not everyone wants to hear about the new 30% discount on the new bed frame that we have on our site. So we do try to utilize like who's been looking at this, who's expressed interest in this within the last 30 days, 60 days, that kind of stuff. So I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah, I think ultimately we're really just trying to make sure that if you're interested in this, we'll talk to you about it. If you're not, we probably won't talk to you about it. So I don't know if that's simple enough.
Yeah, I can speak like broadly across our customer base. What I see generally, they get started with an abandoned browse. You're just replaying the product that they looked at that they might be interested in. Then the next step is having related items. So here are other items that other people who purchased this product looked at or also purchased. Then we get into that user affinity, brand affinity, based on different categories. And then, of course, what we see for things like new users where we don't have a lot of product interaction, things like, top trending or most popular. We see that working well for welcome series campaigns.
Yeah, I think another thing too, I'll just say it really quickly, I know we're running out of time, is we do try to look at some of our products as like insurance for your purchase, not just like an extended warranty, but like we have a mattress protector. So we have like a funny email that talks about how our most read blog on our site is how to get pee out of your mattress. And, for that email, we say, don't let this be you. And, we talk about like the different fluids that can happen in a bedroom and can, happen on a bed. And so I know it's like, can be kind of crass, but I think a lot of people have responded well to it in terms of it being like a humorous approach to talking about a product like a mattress protector. So yeah, there's other ways that we have done that as well.
Yeah, we let our animals jump on our beds too. So I think there's like a multi-purpose email. So this is an interesting question. I'll open it up to the floor, whoever wants to field it. Sort of two questions that are related. So one is asking, how have you adjusted your approach to social during COVID? And then on a related note, many retailers are going to need to reacquire a significant portion of their customers once the lockdown lifts. How are you using Blueshift, or more generally, how are you thinking about your reacquisition strategy, which might also involve social?
Yeah, I'll take one of the social questions. So because half our team were furloughed, we didn't, who was looking after social sadly isn't with, working at the moment. So I think we took a bit of a knee-jerk reaction at first, and we just said, we're just going to put a message up saying, we can't get back to you at this moment. And we had a couple of weekly posts that soon ran out. But what we found is, I think a lot of people are at home and they're looking at social. And so I think that fear that we wouldn't have any time to do it, or we couldn't do it, we soon realized that actually there's a lot of people looking at social, and it almost looks like we've turned the lights off here. So we adjusted that. We started to do about 2 Facebook posts a week, and 1 Instagram and 1 Twitter, which isn't huge, but we're finding the time to do that. And also we're learning as we go along. So we recently put an NHS thanking NHS workers, for their efforts and bringing them through to a page with NHS offers. And again, I was talking about that tone of voice and imagery earlier. That's already got some people's backs up who said they weren't NHS workers. And so we had to deal with that.
Yeah. Great.
For us,
well, go ahead.
I was just going to say, for us, we've taken a lot of our employees and put them on our social, and they talk about like how they're getting through these times. We also try to align email and social so that whatever we're talking about on email, it happens on social at some point within the same week. But yeah, I think overall, we're really just trying to think through like, how do we incorporate our employees and like how they're dealing with the situation, because they're not, for the most part, they're not trying to be like salesy at all. They're just being genuine. Like, I'm investing in my garden. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. So we've kind of tried to do that a little bit too. And I think a lot of companies have done that. I think the best example I've seen is Everlane. If you're not familiar with them, they're like a clothing fashion brand based out of New York. But definitely check out their stuff because they're doing a lot of interesting things too.
Yeah, I know you've only got a few minutes left, but for us, it's very much about content actually. So we created a whole hub of useful, helpful content to help people understand how they can best manage their finances at this time. So that's been a lot of our CRM plan. We've used it a lot on social. And actually for us, I guess the question about re-engagement, we try to maintain engagement. So if we don't have products to serve users with right now, let's keep them engaged with some helpful content. And so actually we're trying to, and actually we've re-engaged a lot of lapsed users since this has happened because that content's been helpful. So I think that's another way you can try and retain users rather than have to win them back.
Yep, perfect. Well, I'm getting the cue that we need to start wrapping up. I feel like we could continue the conversation for another hour. Super interesting. Great takeaways. So just want to wrap up with some of the big takeaways here. So we've touched on a few key points. We talked about the marketing mix. How has communication changed from that commercial, promotional to more sort of emotional and educational during the height of COVID? But now we're seeing there's a bit of a rebound where people want to get back to work. They want to get back to normal. They've created their new normal. And so now they want you to give them the information that they need from your brand. So it's interesting to see that evolution. We're also seeing the change in how you have each adapted your businesses during these change in inventories and supply chain constraints. And even though you're in different vertical, it's just interesting to hear how things have been changing and in quite a bit of flux day to day, but also, Tyler, with your example, showcasing some of the great work that Tuft & Needle has done for the healthcare workers in New York and around the US. And then also like cross-functionally, we're talking about cross-channel, but with that, it means working internally, cross-functionally to think about that cohesive experience and how that can apply to, all these channels from owned to paid. So it's great to hear that you're working with your teams, using them as a source of inspiration for a lot of your content, and you're involving them. Oftentimes, we're CRM and marketing are that interface between the company and the customer. So it's great to hear that you're involving teams and using that to deliver that customer experience. So that's all wonderful. Just to close out some housekeeping items. The winner of the Uber Eats gift card is Felicia Kelly from Starbucks. So congratulations. You'll see that gift card coming along soon. And just want to introduce, we've got another session happening tomorrow, so please tune in at the same time. And with that, would love to thank our panelists for joining. Thank you all attendees for joining, and looking forward to having you tune in again tomorrow. Have a great day.